Hi, sleepy cuties. Where are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Take a moment to notice where you are. Maybe you're lying down in bed, wrapped up in your blanket. Maybe you're curled up on the couch, or listening with headphones in a quiet room. Wherever you are, it's the perfect place. And whatever time your clock says, it's the right time to slow down, to let your thoughts grow softer, and to drift into a story. Because tonight, we're walking with three little bears: Grizzly, Panda, and Ice Bear. Together, they are on a gentle journey into a place the world has almost forgotten. A place called the Whispering Forest. The night was cool, painted silver by a wide, glowing moon. Grizzly walked in front, his paws brushing the tall grass with each step. Panda followed, his lantern glowing faintly, swaying like a heartbeat in the dark. Ice Bear was quiet, his small figure at the back, but his eyes, soft and steady, took in every detail of the path. The forest stretched endlessly ahead. Tall pines leaned together, branches heavy with shadows and moonlight. The wind moved gently through them, and the sound was not harsh or frightening, but hushed, like a lullaby, a song that had been sung for centuries. If you listened closely, it almost sounded like words, whispers traveling from tree to tree. The bears slowed down, their paws falling into silence on the soft, mossy ground. The night air smelled of pine and rain-soaked earth, fresh and clean. The deeper they walked, the softer the world became. Even the sound of their breathing joined the rhythm of the forest. Panda lifted his lantern higher. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his voice nervous but curious. Grizzly smiled. "It's just the trees saying hello." Ice Bear tilted his head, listening closely. Voices, gentle voices, forest speaking. And indeed, the wind moved through the branches in a way that felt alive. Not scary, but caring, like the forest had been waiting for them. The path led them into a wide clearing where the ground was covered in velvet moss. Fireflies drifted up from the grass, tiny golden lights flickering like stars fallen from the sky. Their glow moved slowly, patiently, circling around the bears as if guiding them forward. Grizzly dropped his backpack with a soft thud. Panda carefully set down his lantern, the flame flickering lower as his eyelids grew heavy. And Ice Bear, calm and steady, unrolled a blanket across the moss. The three bears curled together, shoulder to shoulder, as they always did. Grizzly's warmth on one side, Panda's drowsy little sighs on the other, and Ice Bear's steady presence between them, grounding them in the night. Above them, the branches whispered on, not sharp, not secretive, gentle, like kind old voices telling stories too soft to understand. Panda listened as he drifted closer to sleep, and just before his eyes closed, he thought he heard the forest say, clear and kind, "Welcome home." The lantern dimmed. The fireflies rose higher. The forest wrapped them in its hush. And the three little bears, safe in each other's company, let themselves drift into dreams. This was only the beginning of their first night in the Whispering Forest. A night filled with voices, with echoes, with secrets the moonlight had yet to reveal. But for now, all was quiet. All was safe. All was home. The night deepened. The forest grew darker. And though the three bears had closed their eyes, the whispers above them never stopped. Grizzly shifted in his sleep. Panda mumbled softly, dreaming of something sweet. But Ice Bear's eyes opened. He wasn't afraid. Ice Bear was never afraid. But something had changed. The lantern Panda had left beside them was glowing again. Not faint, not weak, but strong, brighter than before. Its flame should have gone out hours ago, but it burned taller, steady, as if someone unseen had touched it. Ice Bear sat up, ears twitching. He looked at the trees. The shadows they cast were no longer soft. They were stretched long, bending, swaying as if reaching toward the little circle of light. The whispers were louder now, not angry, not cruel, but urgent, like voices calling from far away, each word broken by the wind. They rose and fell, surrounding the bears as though the forest had something it wanted to say. Ice Bear ears, he whispered to himself. But the words dissolved into the night. Grizzly stirred. Too bright, he muttered, blinking at the lantern. Didn't we put that out? Panda sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. I'm sure I did. It was almost gone. They all stared at it together. The flame didn't flicker. It stood tall, unbroken, shining gold in the misty clearing. And then the fireflies returned. But this time, they didn't float lazily. They swarmed quickly, circling the lantern in fast, frantic spirals, as though they were trapped in its pull. Their glow pulsed brighter, faster, until the clearing was painted in flashing light. Panda shivered. It's like it wants us to follow. Grizzly nodded, his voice quiet for once. Yeah, forest is awake tonight, Ice Bear simply said. Lantern leads the way. So they rose. They packed their blanket. Panda held the lantern, though it felt warmer now, almost heavy in his paws. Grizzly walked at his side, watching the shadows shift with each step. And Ice Bear, silent as ever, kept close behind. The forest path was no longer gentle. The moss underfoot grew darker, damp with mist. The trees leaned closer, their trunks thick and twisted, as though the forest itself was crowding around them. And the whispers. Oh, the whispers were everywhere now. Some sounded near, like voices just over their shoulders. Others sounded far away, echoing from deep within the trees. None were clear enough to understand. But all of them, seemed to be saying the same thing. Come deeper. The lantern pulled them forward. Panda's arms ached, but he couldn't set it down. It was as though the light had chosen him. Then the path ended. And in front of them stood something they had not seen before. An old wooden arch, half broken, covered in vines. Beyond it, a darker part of the forest stretched, where the moonlight didn't reach. A gate, a threshold, into a place that felt untouched by time. The lantern flared. The whispers hushed. For one long moment, the night went silent. Grizzly swallowed. Do we go in? Panda trembled, but nodded. I think we're supposed to. Ice Bear said nothing. He stepped forward first. And as they passed beneath the arch, the lantern flickered. Its flame stretched thin, then burst bright again. The forest behind them seemed to vanish into shadow. They were somewhere else now, somewhere older. Somewhere the whispers grew into songs, haunting, slow, like lullabies, sung by voices long gone. The bears stood together in the dark, lantern glow trembling over the roots and stones of this hidden place. And then, just at the edge of the light, something moved. Not a shadow, not a tree, but a figure, silent still, watching. Panda's breath caught. Grizzly stepped closer to his brothers. Ice Bear narrowed his eyes. The figure did not approach. It only stood there, just beyond the reach of the lantern, as the whispers swelled all around them. And then it was gone, as though it had melted into the dark. The lantern dimmed again, heavy in Panda's hands. His voice shook. We're not alone here. Grizzly forced a smile, though his heart beat faster. We've got each other. That's all we need. Ice Bear looked into the shadows. His voice was calm. Forest has more to show. And with that, the lantern pulled them forward again, deeper into the haunted heart of the whispering forest. The deeper the bears went, the stranger the forest became. The trees here were taller, older, their bark dark and scarred, as though they had stood for 1,000 years. Their branches twisted together, shutting out most of the moonlight, so that the only glow came from the little lantern Panda carried. Its flame still burned, but softer now, as if the night itself was drinking in its light. The whispers grew louder, weaving together into tones and syllables that almost made words. Not clear, not yet, but close enough that the bears slowed their steps, listening. Grizzly's ears twitched. "Did you hear that? It sounded like my name." Panda clutched the lantern tighter. "It sounded like mine." Ice Bear walked on, eyes fixed ahead. Forest knows us. The path ended at a hollow. A circle of stones stood in the clearing, half buried in moss, arranged in a pattern that felt deliberate, like an old memory carved into the earth. At the center of the stones lay a fallen tree, its trunk hollow, split open like a doorway to something hidden. The lantern flared when they stepped closer. The whispers hushed, replaced by something deeper. Echoes. Not voices in the wind anymore, but voices rising from within the hollow log. Low, resonant, almost chanting. Grizzly frowned. "It's singing. The log is singing." Panda shivered, holding the lantern higher. I don't think I want to hear what it's saying." But Ice Bear stepped closer, his paw resting on the cracked wood. The echoes grew louder, vibrating through the ground into their chests, into their hearts. Then the lantern went out. Darkness swallowed them. The fireflies did not return. Only the echoes remained. Panda gasped, hugging his brothers. Grizzly put an arm around them both. Their breaths were loud in the silence, loud against the heavy chant of the hollow. And then, the hollow tree breathed. A soft exhale, cool and damp, as though something inside it was alive. The moss trembled. The stones quivered. The forest grew colder. Grizzly's voice cracked as he whispered, I think there's something in there." Panda shook his head, his eyes wide, though the dark hid his fear. No, it's empty. It has to be empty." But Ice Bear, steady as ever, whispered back, "Not empty. Waiting." The echoes shifted. The chant turned into words, broken but clear enough to understand. "Stay, stay, stay." The lantern sparked back to life on its own, bursting with light that painted the clearing in gold. And in that glow, the bears saw them figures, dozens of them, standing between the trees, pale and silent. Shadows shaped like people, some tall, some small, some bent, some broken. They stood in a wide circle around the clearing, unmoving, their eyes dark and endless, fixed only on the bears. Panda's paw trembled so hard the lantern shook. Grizzly pulled him closer. "Don't look at them. Just don't." But Ice Bear did not look away. His voice was soft. "They were here before us." The figures did not step closer. They did not speak. They only watched. And then one by one they raised their hands. Not in threat, not in anger, but in silence, as if they were reaching for the bears, reaching for the light. The lantern flickered violently, its flame stretching taller, as though something unseen was pulling at it. Panda stumbled back. Grizzly held fast. Ice Bear stayed firm, his gaze never leaving the shadows. And then, all at once, the figures lowered their hands. The whispers returned, the chant faded. and the lantern dimmed back to a steady glow. The clearing was empty again. The three bears stood trembling, their hearts racing. None of them spoke for a long time. "At last," Grizzly whispered. "Why are they here?" Panda's voice cracked. "What do they want?" Ice Bear answered simply, "They want us to stay." The echoes in the hollow faded into silence. The forest waited. And the lantern, heavy and alive in Panda's paws, pulled them onward again, deeper into the whispering dark. The bears walked on, the lantern swinging in Panda's trembling paws. The forest around them grew tighter, the path narrower, roots tangling across the ground like knotted ropes. The air was colder now, heavy with mist that clung to their fur. Even Grizzly, who was always so cheerful, stayed quiet. Only the whispers filled the silence, not just from the trees anymore, but from the ground, from the stones, from the air itself. The voices overlapped, hundreds of them, too many to follow. Some soft, some harsh, some like sighs in the ear, others like cries swallowed in the dark. Panda whimpered. "They're all around us, everywhere." Grizzly put a paw on his shoulder. "It's okay, buddy. Just keep moving." Ice Bear's voice was calm but low. "They're closer." The lantern flared again, its light stretching ahead of them. It revealed something new, a wall of trees, their trunks so close together they formed a barrier. And at the center of the wall, a doorway. Not carved, not made, just there. A perfect gap, shaped like an arch, glowing faintly as if the forest itself wanted them to enter. The bears paused. The whispers fell silent, and then a sound behind them. Slow, wet, dragging, like footsteps pulling through mud. Grizzly spun around, but there was nothing. The path behind them was empty, swallowed in shadow. The dragging sound stopped when he looked. Then it started again. Closer. Panda clutched the lantern tighter, holding it high. Its glow stretched only a little way into the mist. But in that thin circle of light, something appeared. A hand. Just a hand, pale and thin, pressing out of the mist like it had reached through from another place. Its fingers long, trembling, stretching toward the bears. Panda screamed, stumbling back. Grizzly shielded him with his body, growling low. Ice Bear only whispered, "Forest touching." The hand pulled away. But then another appeared, and another, and another. Dozens of hands reaching from the mist, clawing through the air, not fast, not violent, but desperate, grasping at the light of the lantern. They did not make a sound. Only the forest did, its whispers rising into a chant that circled the bears, the words clearer now. "Stay, stay, stay." The lantern flickered wildly. Its flames stretched long, bending toward the doorway in the wall of trees. It was pulling them, begging them to step inside. Panda sobbed, "I don't want to go." Grizzly held him tight, his own voice shaking. "We don't have a choice, Pan. Look at them. They won't stop." And Ice Bear, steady, stepped forward. Through the doorway. The bears moved as one, Panda clutching the lantern, Grizzly pressing close to shield them, Ice Bear leading. The moment they crossed beneath the arch, the hand stopped. The mist stilled, and silence crashed down like a heavy blanket. They were through. The doorway behind them sealed with the groan of wood and earth. The hands were gone, but so was the path. The bears stood in a place they did not recognize. A hollow, lit not by moonlight, but by a pale glow that seemed to come from the ground itself. The air was thick with shadows that moved even when the bears stood still. And at the center of the hollow, a figure waited. Not hidden, not distant, but standing in the open, watching them. The lantern dimmed in Panda's paws, as if bowing before it. The whispers hushed to silence. For the first time, the forest itself seemed to be holding its breath. The clearing glowed faintly, a ghost light rising from the ground itself. The air felt heavy, thicker than mist, pressing close around the bear's fur. At the center, the figure stood waiting. Tall, still, wrapped in shadows. Panda froze. His paws clutched the lantern so tightly his claws scraped the metal. Grizzly stepped in front, his usual smile gone, his voice low. Who are you? Ice Bear said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on the figure, calm but unblinking. The forest did not whisper. It did not breathe. It only listened. The figure raised its head, slowly, as though time itself weighed it down. And then it spoke. Its voice was like the wind through the hollow trees, like echoes buried under the earth. Not one voice, but many. Gentle, ancient, endless. You have come where others would not. The lantern flared in Panda's paws, the light bending toward the figure as if it belonged to them. Panda whimpered. It wants the lantern. Grizzly frowned. It's just the light. Why does it matter so much? The figure answered without being asked. The flame is not yours. It is ours. It was lit long ago by hands that no longer walk this world. You carry what should never have left. The ground pulsed faintly as if the earth itself agreed. Panda shook his head, trembling. We didn't steal it. I just picked it up. I thought it was helping us. The voice filled the clearing again. It helps because it hungers. It brings you to us because you belong. Grizzly growled, holding Panda tighter. We don't belong here. We just wanted a place to rest. The shadows around the figure rippled. And the forest gave you one. But no one leaves the Whispering Woods unchanged. No one leaves without leaving something behind. The lantern's light turned harsh, stretching the bear's shadows across the clearing. Their shapes twisted long, curling into strange forms on the ground, shapes that did not match them. Panda gasped as his shadow bent, its head turning where his did not, its paw reaching farther than his own. Grizzly's shadow leaned close behind him, taller, broader, its mouth wide open, though his stayed shut. And Ice Bear's shadow did not move at all. It only stood perfectly still, watching. The figure lifted a hand, long, pale, trembling. The same hand Panda had seen reaching from the mist. The same hand that had pulled at the lantern. Give it back, the voices whispered together. Or stay forever. The lantern burned hotter, the metal searing Panda's paws. He cried out, almost dropping it, but Grizzly grabbed his shoulders, steadying him. Don't let go, Pan Pan! Don't you dare! Ice Bear stepped forward between them and the figure. His voice was calm, steady, final. Ice Bear decides when to let go. The forest trembled. The whispers rose again, no longer words but cries, hundreds of them, all around, above, below. The figure's shadow stretched taller, looming, reaching with both hands now. The lantern shook violently in Panda's paws. Its flame twisted, pulling toward the figure like a rope drawn tight. The bears held on together, their strength and fear binding them as one. The figure's voice boomed. The flame is ours. But Ice Bear's voice cut through, quiet yet unshaken. No, flame is ours now. The lantern erupted with light. Blinding, endless. The clearing was swallowed in gold. The shadows screamed without sound, scattering into the trees. The figure staggered back, its form breaking, unraveling into mist. The earth shuddered, the stones cracked, the air tore itself open. And then silence. The figure was gone. The forest stood still. The lantern glowed steady and calm in Panda's paws. The three bears collapsed together on the moss, panting, shaking. Grizzly laughed nervously, his voice cracking. We made it, right? Panda hugged the lantern, though it no longer burned his paws. I think it's safe now. The nearest bear looked at the glow and at his brothers. Forest not finished. And in the distance, the whispers began again. Softer, but closer. The lantern glowed softly now, no longer burning, no longer pulling, just warm, gentle, like a heartbeat in Panda's paws. The forest was quiet. The mist had faded. The air smelled of rain and pine again, fresh and clean. Grizzly leaned back against the moss, letting out a long breath. That was the scariest nap I've ever taken. He laughed weakly, though his voice trembled. Panda hugged the lantern close to his chest. I thought it was going to take us. I thought we'd never get out. Ice Bear sat beside them, calm and steady, though his eyes stayed on the trees. Not over. Forest still watching. The whispers were faint now, softer than a sigh, as though the forest was tired too. The towering pines swayed gently, no longer reaching, no longer crowding. The three bears laid down on the moss once more, shoulder to shoulder as they always did. The fireflies drifted back, glowing slowly, lazily, as though nothing had ever been wrong. Grizzly stretched an arm around Panda and Ice Bear. Whatever happens, we've got each other. That's enough. Panda's eyelids fluttered. Together. His voice drifted as sleep pulled him down. Ice Bear closed his eyes last. Together. The lantern dimmed with them, flickering lower and lower until it was only a small spark, barely there at all. The bears breathed in rhythm, their chests rising and falling like the tide. Above them, the stars blinked faintly through the canopy, and the forest seemed to hum a lullaby, low, steady, older than time itself. For a while, there was nothing but peace. But as the night stretched on, the lantern gave one final flicker. Its spark flared just for a moment, as though answering something unseen. And in the distance, deep between the trees, faint shapes stirred, pale and waiting. Their whispers too soft to hear clearly. Stay. Morning broke. The first light of dawn painted the forest gold. The bears woke together, yawning, stretching, safe. The lantern was dark now, its flame gone. Just an ordinary object, cold in Panda's paws. Grizzly laughed and stood, brushing moss from his fur. See? We made it through the night. Panda smiled weakly, relief softening his face. Yeah, it was just a dream. Had to be. Ice Bear said nothing. He only picked up the lantern, carried it quietly, and walked ahead. Behind them, in the hush of the morning forest, the pines swayed gently. And if you listened closely, you might still hear it. A whisper. Soft. Endless. Welcome home. The night was cool, and the sky was wide with stars. Grizzly carried a bundle of sticks under his arm, humming to himself. Panda followed close behind, holding a little box of matches. Ice Bear carried nothing at all, only his calm, steady steps. They were looking for a place to rest, somewhere cozy where they could share stories and warm their paws. The forest was silent except for the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. It was the kind of silence that made the air feel thick, like the world was holding its breath. Grizzly spotted a small clearing ahead. Here. This looks perfect for a campfire. Panda nodded sleepily, his lantern swaying at his side. I can't wait to sit down, Ice Bear whispered. Good spot. They stacked the wood into a little pile, dry branches snapping as Grizzly broke them down. Panda struck a match, its flame tiny but eager, and held it to the sticks. Slowly, carefully, the fire began to grow. Crack, pop, sway. The flames licked upward, painting the night in gold. Shadows stretched long against the trees, and the bears huddled close to the warmth. Perfect, Grizzly said with a smile. Nothing better than a fire at night. Panda curled his paws near the heat, sighing softly. So cozy. Ice Bear simply closed his eyes, letting the light flicker across his fur. But as the fire burned, something strange happened. It didn't fade. It didn't sputter. The flames grew steady, taller than before, brighter than before. Too steady. Too tall. Grizzly tilted his head. That's weird. It's not using any of the wood. Panda blinked. What do you mean? The fire cracked loudly, sparks flying up into the night. But the pile of sticks stayed whole, untouched. It was burning, without burning anything at all. The bears sat in silence, watching. The fire seemed alive, breathing, pulsing, never shrinking, never fading. Panda's voice shook. Grizz, is it supposed to do that? Grizzly forced a laugh. Maybe it's some special fire? Like good luck or something? But Ice Bear opened his eyes, looking into the flames. His voice was low. Fire is not ours. The campfire blazed stronger, casting their shadows longer and longer across the trees. The air warmed too quickly, too much, until it felt like the forest itself was leaning closer, listening. And then, the whispers began. Not from the trees this time, but from the fire. Soft, crackling voices curling between the sparks, words hidden in the smoke, words the bears could almost hear. Grizzly leaned forward, uneasy now. Did that fire just say something? Panda shivered. It sounded like my name. The flames popped, and the whispers rose again, low, broken, almost like laughter carried on the smoke. The bears stared into the firelight, their paws touching, their breath caught in their chests. The campfire was awake, and it was not going out. The campfire crackled. Its flames rose higher, curling and bending like fingers reaching into the night. Grizzly leaned back uneasily. That's not normal fire. I don't like this. Panda's lantern flickered, though he hadn't touched it. He pulled it close, whispering, It's like the fires. Alive. Ice Bear kept watching, silent, his face steady but his eyes sharp. Not like. Alive. The voices inside the fire grew louder. At first they were broken, soft cracks and pops that sounded like words. But slowly, carefully, the bears began to understand them. Stay with us. Don't leave. Don't let it die. The fire hissed, sparks jumping into the air like restless spirits. The heat pushed against their fur, warm one moment, stifling the next. The logs beneath it remained untouched. No ash, no smoke. The fire burned without burning. Grizzly frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay. I vote we put it out. Just kick some dirt on it and... Before he could move, the flames surged, twisting into a shape. A face. It rose from the center of the fire, eyes glowing white, mouth open in a silent scream. The flames bent like hair in the wind, flickering, snarling, whispering. Panda gasped, covering his mouth. Grizz? Grizzly froze where he sat, his heart pounding. And Ice Bear only said, Fire remembers. The face shifted, melting back into the flames. Then another appeared, and another. Dozens of faces flickered in and out, some smiling, some frowning, some twisted with sorrow. Their mouths moved with the crackling sound, speaking all at once. We stayed, now you stay too. The forest seemed to lean closer. The trees groaned as if pulled by the fire's heat, their branches bending low, shadows stretching across the clearing. Panda clutched the lantern tight. Why is it talking to us? What does it want? The fire hissed in reply, sparks bursting upward, forming words that twisted in the smoke above them. Never leave. The bears huddled together, their shadows stretching across the moss, bending unnaturally like their own reflections were being pulled toward the flames. Grizzly's voice shook, but he tried to stay brave. We're not staying here forever. We'll just walk away. But when he stood, the fire roared. The flames shot higher, a ring of sparks spinning out, circling the clearing like a wall. The fire whispered again, this time louder. No one leaves. The campfire that never dies. The bears looked at each other, fear settling heavy in their chests. Grizzly clenched his paws. Then we'll put it out together. Panda whimpered. What if we can't? An ice bear stepped forward, calm as always, his eyes reflecting the fire. We can try. The three of them moved closer, the heat rising, the whispers surrounding them. The fire hissed, its faces snarling, its voice breaking into a chant. Stay, stay, stay. And the campfire blazed brighter, hungrier, as though it knew. The bears were about to fight it. The flames rose higher, their light bending across the clearing, painting everything gold and red. The whispering turned into a low chant. Dozens of voices layered together, rising and falling like waves. Stay, stay, stay. Grizzly stepped forward first, his fur hot beneath the blaze. All right, enough. This is just fire. Fire goes out. He grabbed a handful of dirt, threw it into the flames. The sparks swallowed it whole. The fire only grew taller. Panda whimpered, backing away. Grizz, it didn't even notice. It's not normal fire. His lantern shook in his paws, the glass rattling as though it too felt afraid. Ice Bear's eyes narrowed, calm, unwavering. Fire is not alive, but what's inside is. Grizzly turned to him, his voice cracking. Inside? Inside what? The fire answered for him. The flames twisted suddenly, stretching upward in a column of light. Within it, shapes moved, arms reaching, faces screaming, shadows flickering as though trapped inside the blaze. Their mouths opened wide, but no sound came, only the crackling roar of the fire. The ground trembled beneath the bear's paws. The clearing shook, and then the voices hissed together, sharp and clear. We are here. We stayed. You will too. Panda clutched the lantern tighter, his breathing quick. It's full of them. The fire is full of people. Grizzly shook his head. No, that's not possible. It's just a trick. It has to be. The fire lashed outward, sparks snapping like whips. One struck Grizzly's paw. He yelped, pulling back, though the spark left no burn, only a mark. A faint glowing ember pressed into his fur, pulsing like a heartbeat. Panda screamed, Grizz! It's trying to take you! The whispering grew faster, louder. The faces in the fire leaned closer, their glowing eyes fixed on the bears. Stay! 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 Grizzly grabbed Panda's paw, pulling him close. No matter what, we don't let go of each other. Got it? Panda nodded shakily, tears in his eyes. Oh, okay. Ice Bear stood in front of them, his shadow tall against the fire. His voice was quiet but certain. Not staying. Together they charged. Grizzly kicked dirt. Panda swung his lantern, scattering sparks. Ice Bear threw water from his canteen, drops hissing as they struck the fire. For a moment, just a moment, the flames dimmed. The chanting stuttered. But then, it roared back stronger. The fire erupted, taller than the trees, a wall of gold and red. Sparks spun into shapes, hands, claws, reaching arms that stretched out toward the bears. The heat was suffocating, pressing against their chests like stone. And the voices screamed in unison, "No one leaves the campfire. No one leaves." Panda dropped to his knees, covering his ears. "It's too loud! I can't! Grizzly pulled him back up, gripping his shoulders. "Don't listen, Pan. Stay with us!" Ice Bear raised his lantern, holding it high. The fire bent toward it instantly, drawn like a moth to light. The lantern's glow flared brighter, its small flame battling against the monstrous blaze. The two lights fought, one tiny, one endless. The air shook with the clash. The fire's faces snarled. "Give it back! It belongs to us!" The bears stood together, trembling in the heat, shadows bending and stretching across the clearing. The fire pressed closer, its voices splitting into screams, laughter, cries. Grizzly's voice broke through the roar. "We're not giving you anything. Not our fire, not our lives, not each other." Ice Bear's eyes narrowed. His voice was final. "Fire ends tonight." The lantern flared once more, golden and pure, and the fire recoiled, shrieking. Sparks rained across the clearing like falling stars. The ground cracked, the trees shook, the voices howled, and then everything went dark. The campfire was gone. No flames, no light, only the faint glow of Panda's lantern. Only the sound of the bears' ragged breathing. The clearing smelled of smoke. The ground was warm beneath their paws, but where the fire had been, there was nothing. No wood, no ash, no trace at all. Grizzly sank to his knees, exhausted. We did it. It's over." Panda hugged the lantern close. Please let it be over." Ice Bear stared at the empty spot, silent. His shadow stretched behind him, long and still. And in the silence, faintly, almost too soft to hear, crackle, a single spark, hidden, waiting. The clearing was quiet, too quiet. The bears sat together in the dim glow of Panda's lantern. Their fur was damp with sweat, their breaths shaky. The fire was gone, or at least, it looked gone. Grizzly broke the silence first. We beat it, right?" His voice was tired, hopeful, like a child convincing himself of something he didn't believe. Panda clutched the lantern tight. I don't hear it anymore. No voices, no whispers." Ice Bear stood still, his head tilted, listening to the night. After a long pause, he said, "Not gone. Hiding." The wind stirred, brushing the treetops. The forest groaned as if something was shifting inside its bones. Grizzly pushed himself to his feet, grabbing Panda's paw. "Come on, we're leaving, before it starts again." They stumbled through the trees, their lantern light bobbing, shadows stretching long behind them. Every step crunched too loud, every breath sounded too sharp. But the further they walked, the more they felt it. The heat. Creeping. Following. Panda glanced over his shoulder. At first, nothing. Just trees, endless and dark. But then, faintly lower to the ground, an ember blinked. 1, 2, 3. Little sparks flickering in the distance, glowing like eyes. Panda gasped. "Grizz, it's following us." Grizzly didn't look back. He pulled them faster. "Don't stop. Don't turn around." But the sparks grew brighter, closer. The forest air thickened with smoke. It crawled around their ankles, rising from nowhere, curling like fingers reaching through the leaves. The heat pulsed against their backs, closer with every step. And then, the whispers return are not soft this time, not broken, clear everywhere. We never go out. We never die. We burn forever. The trees around them flared suddenly, their trunks glowing red inside, like coals hidden under bark. Flames licked up the branches, but nothing burned, no crackle, no ash. A fire was alive in the wood, in the leaves, in the air. Grizzly skidded to a stop, eyes wide. "It's just the whole forest!" The whispers rose, overlapping voices all around them. "Stay with us! Stay in the fire! Be part of us!" Panda's lantern shook violently, the glass rattling. The flame inside wasn't steady anymore. It spun, twisted, stretching toward the smoke, as if it wanted to join. Panda clutched it tight, tears in his eyes. "No, don't you take this too." Ice Bear stepped forward, standing between his brothers and the glowing forest. His voice was low, steady, unshaken. "Fire wants us. We don't want fire." The heat surged. The whispers screamed. The ember eyes blinked open all around them. And then, ahead of them, in the path, it appeared again. The campfire. Perfect. Unchanged. Waiting. Grizzly's voice cracked. "No. Put it out. I saw it die." Panda shook his head, trembling. "It never died, Grizz. It can't die." The campfire blazed higher, its flames twisting into faces again. Dozens of them, smiling, crying, screaming. "No one leaves, no one escapes. We are fire. You are fuel." The ground trembled, smoke choking the air. The bears clung to each other, shadows bending, heat searing their fur. The lantern shook harder, its flame stretching, fighting, as though it was being pulled into the campfire itself. The voices roared in unison. "Burn with us!" And the forest lit up. Every tree and every leaf, every shadow, alive with fire. The forest burned. But nothing turned to ash. The trees glowed red inside, their branches alive with flame that didn't consume them. The ground pulsed with heat, glowing veins beneath the moss. The air was heavy, choking with smoke. Yet the leaves never curled, the bark never blackened. It wasn't fire. It was something inside fire. The bears clung to each other in the center of the clearing. The campfire blazed before them, unchanged, eternal. Its flames licked higher, shaping faces that leaned close, eyes wide, mouths stretched too far, teeth of light. Grizzly roared back, fear and fury tangled in his throat. "We're not fuel. We're not staying here." The fire laughed. Not one voice, but hundreds. Some soft, some broken, some sharp enough to make Panda cover his ears. "You already stay. You already burn. You always did." The smoke curled thick around them. Panda staggered, coughing, the lantern trembling in his paws. Through the haze, he saw shapes forming, figures standing just beyond the glow. They looked like bears. Like them. 3 shadows in the smoke, shoulder to shoulder, their faces hidden, their eyes hollow. They moved when he moved. They reached when he reached. But their shapes flickered wrong. Too thin, too long, too broken. Panda's voice cracked. "Grizz! Grizz! They look like us!" Grizzly grabbed his paw, pulling him close. "Don't look! Don't!" The shadows stepped closer and closer, until Panda saw their mouths moving in silence. The same mouths as the faces in the fire. The flames surged, laughing again, the voices now all around them. "We are you. You are us. The fire remembers." Grizzly stumbled back, shaking his head. No, that's not true. We're not part of this." Ice Bear's eyes stayed locked on the fire. His voice was low. "Not yet." The campfire snapped, sparks shooting outward, swirling around the bears like fireflies. But they weren't soft or gentle. They hissed when they touched fur, leaving marks that glowed faintly, like embers pressed into skin. Grizzly winced, clutching his arm. Panda screamed as one landed on his cheek, burning without heat. Ice Bear didn't flinch, though 3 sparks clung to his fur, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. The fire roared, its faces twisted in joy. You burn with us. The lantern flared suddenly, fighting against the pull. Its little flame burned brighter, hotter, golden instead of red. Panda clung to it, sobbing. It's all we have left. Don't take it. The fire leaned closer, bending toward the lantern. Its voices overlapped into one. It belongs to us. It was always ours. Give it back, and you may rest. Grizzly snarled, standing in front of Panda and Ice Bear. His fur bristled, his teeth bared. You'll never take it. You'll never take us. The fire screamed, every face, every mouth, every voice shrieking together until the air itself shook. The trees bent. The ground split. The clearing collapsed into fire. The bears held each other tight, their eyes shut, their hearts pounding. Smoke filled their lungs, heat crushed their chests. The lantern's glow flared so bright it blinded them. And then silence. The smoke cleared. The fire was gone. The forest was dark again, still quiet. Only the lantern glowed, trembling weakly in Panda's paws. The bears coughed, gasping for breath, their fur damp with sweat. Grizzly fell to his knees, panting. We survived, Panda whispered, almost too soft to hear. But for how long? Ice Bear stared at the lantern, his reflection flickering in its flame. His voice was flat, certain. Ice Bear knows. Fire not finished. And from deep within the forest, a faint crackle answered. The forest was quiet again. The trees stood still, their bark dark, their branches heavy with dew. No glow, no smoke, no whispers. Only the soft golden shimmer of Panda's lantern lit the clearing, small but steady. The bears sat huddled together, their breaths slowing, their fur damp with the night air. Grizzly leaned against a tree, closing his eyes. We made it, somehow. His voice was tired, but gentler now, almost a lullaby itself. Panda held the lantern close, as though cradling a heartbeat. I don't know if we beat it, Grizz. I think it just let us go. Ice Bear's eyes were half closed, his voice calm. Doesn't matter. We're together. That's enough. The clearing softened with silence. The stars above shimmered faintly through the branches. And for a little while, the bears forgot the fire, forgot the whispers, forgot the smoke. They lay side by side, shoulder to shoulder, warm against each other. The lantern flickered low like a lullaby in glass, guiding them into rest. Grizzly yawned, his voice fading. Whatever comes tomorrow, we'll face it. Like always. Panda murmured sleepily. Together. And Ice Bear whispered, eyes closing. Always. The forest listened. The night listened. The fireflies drifted back into the clearing, soft sparks floating like tiny stars, as if the world was tucking the bears beneath a blanket of light. Their breathing slowed. The lantern dimmed, and sleep wrapped around them like the safest home. But just before the flame went out, it flared only for a moment. And from deep in the woods, far away yet close enough to hear, a single crackle answered. The sound of a campfire, alive, waiting. And it would never go out. Wherever you are, whatever glows on your clock, you're right on time for the midnight train. A ride through still forests, over long bridges, across quiet valleys. A ride where the only sound is the soft rhythm of wheels on tracks. The platform was empty when the bears arrived. The station clock struck midnight, and through the fog the train rolled in, long and silver, its windows glowing faintly like lanterns in the dark. Grizzly adjusted his scarf and grinned. "Well, this is it. Midnight Express. Kind of exciting, huh?" Panda hugged his little bag, yawning. "Exciting, but kind of spooky. There's no one else here." Iced Bear, as always, was calm. "Train feels lonely." The doors opened with a hiss. No conductor stepped out. No voice announced the stop. Only silence. The bears climbed aboard, their paws soft against the wooden floor. The train car smelled faintly of dust and old paper. Velvet seats stretched down both sides, and lanterns swayed overhead with the movement of the car. But there were no passengers. Not a single soul. Grizzly dropped into a seat, trying to sound cheerful. "Maybe it's just for us. A private ride. That's kind of cool, right?" Panda sat slowly, looking around. "I don't know. It feels like someone should be here." Ice Bear stood by the window, watching the fog roll past. His voice was quiet. "Someone is." The train lurched forward with a heavy sigh. Wheels clicked against the rails. The station slipped away into the mist. Outside, the night was endless. No towns, no stars, no moon. Just black trees rushing by, their branches bending toward the train like arms. Inside, the lanterns flickered. The seats creaked as if weight pressed into them, though no one was there. Panda pulled his bag closer. "Grizz, I think I heard something." Grizzly leaned back, forcing a smile. "It's just the train settling." But Ice Bear's ears twitched. He looked down the empty aisle. His voice was certain. "Not alone." The wheels clattered louder. The fog pressed close to the windows, and faintly, so faintly, the bears heard it. A cough. A sigh. The sound of footsteps moving down the car. But when they looked, the seats were still empty. The train rattled on, steady as a heartbeat. Wheels clattered against the tracks, echoing through the empty cars. The lanterns swayed with each turn, shadows crawling across the velvet seats. And then, again, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Walking down the aisle. Grizzly sat up straighter, his paws clenching the edge of the seat. "Okay. Did you guys hear that? That's not just me, right?" Panda whispered. I heard it. It's like someone's walking right here." Ice Bear stood still, his eyes fixed on the far end of the car. "Someone is." The sound grew closer. Click, click, click. But when the bears looked, the aisle was empty. The seats were empty. Nothing but the swaying lanterns and the hum of the train. Panda buried his face in his paws. "I don't like this, Grizz. I don't like this at all." Grizzly forced a grin, though his voice shook. "It's fine. Maybe the conductor's just invisible or something." Ice Bear's ears twitched again. "Not conductor. Passengers." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed against their ears, thick and heavy. Then, a cough. Low, weak, human. The sound came from the seat across from Panda. A seat that looked empty. Panda's eyes went wide. Grizz, it came from right there." Grizzly leaned forward, staring at the empty cushion. His voice dropped to a whisper. "But there's no one." The seat creaked. Slowly, as though weight had settled onto it. The lanterns flickered. The air grew colder, and faintly, just barely, the outline of a figure shimmered across the seat. A head bowed low, hands folded in a lap. Nothing clear, nothing solid, just a ghost of a passenger. Panda whimpered, clutching his bag. I can see it. I can see someone sitting there. Grizzly wrapped an arm around him. It's okay. It's okay. But Ice Bear didn't move. He only watched, calm but sharp. Not just one. The bears turned. Down the aisle, across the rows, seat by seat, shapes began to form. Shadows. Outlines. Dozens of passengers flickering into place. Some slumped in their seats. Some staring forward. Some turning slowly, their faint heads bending toward the bears. The air filled with sounds, coughs, sighs, the faint rustle of clothes. The car was no longer empty. It was full. Full of passengers who weren't alive. Panda's voice shook, breaking. Grizz, we have to get off this train. We have to... Grizzly pulled it tighter. We can't. It's moving too fast. Ice Bear's voice was flat, certain. Train has no stops. The lanterns flared suddenly, bright and harsh. Every shadowy passenger lifted their heads in unison. Dozens of hollow eyes turned toward the three bears. And as the train roared through the fog, the voices came. A whisper at first, then louder. Dozens speaking together. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? The bears clung to each other, surrounded. The passengers leaned closer, mouths moving, voices overlapping. Panda shut his eyes tight. Don't look at them! Don't look at them! Grizzly tried to sound brave, though his paws shook. We're just passing through. But the voices rose, filling the car, rattling the windows. You can't leave. You can't leave. You're already on board. The train shuddered, the floor rattling under their paws. The shadows leaned closer, their mouths stretched too wide, their voices a chant. You ride forever. Midnight never ends. The chant faded into a low murmur, hundreds of voices overlapping, rising and falling like waves. The bears pressed together in their seat, surrounded by shapes that weren't supposed to exist. The passengers no longer sat still. They shifted, twitched, turned toward the bears with jerky movements, as though remembering how to be alive. The first one leaned across the aisle. Its face was a blur, hollow where the eyes should be, but when it opened its mouth, the air grew icy. A whisper slipped out, brushing against Panda's fur. Stay! Panda yelped and hid behind Grizzly, who stood up quickly, puffing out his chest, though his voice trembled. We're not staying. We just got on the wrong train, that's all. But the ghostly passenger tilted its head, slow and unnatural, before sinking back into its seat. Its hollow eyes didn't stop staring. More passengers stirred, hands lifted, fingers curled. A dozen pale arms reached across the aisle, stretching toward the bears. Some brushed the edge of Grizzly's scarf. One grazed Panda's paw, leaving a burning cold that made him gasp. I felt it, Grizz. I felt it touch me. Grizzly grabbed his paw, his fur bristling. Back off, leave us alone. Ice Bear stepped in front of them, calm but firm. Not safe here. The train groaned as if agreeing. The walls rattled. The lanterns swung violently, casting shadows that twisted across the car. The bears staggered, gripping the seats to stay upright. Panda clutched the lantern, its glow flickering weakly, as though it was afraid too. Then the windows changed. No longer trees. No longer fog. Outside the train was nothing but black. A void, endless and silent, swallowing every flicker of light. Grizzly's voice cracked. What happened to the forest? Where are we? Panda whimpered. There's nothing out there. Nothing at all. Ice Bear's eyes narrowed, fixed on the darkness. His voice was almost a whisper. Not outside. Inside. The train lurched violently. The aisle stretched longer than the car itself. Rows of seats unfolded endlessly, one after another. More passengers appeared in the distance, faint figures flickering into being. They all turned at once. They all looked at the bears, and they all began to stand. The voices rose again, but this time they were different. Not whispers, not questions. Chants, pleading, demanding. Ride forever, ride forever, ride forever. The aisle filled with moving shadows. The windows rattled. The lanterns dimmed. And one by one, the passengers reached out their hands, swaying with the train's rhythm, closing in on the three bears. Panda screamed, "They're coming closer! What do we do?" Grizzly held his ground, his voice breaking but strong. "We fight our way through. We run to the next car." Ice Bear nodded, calm but cold. "Forward. Only way out." The shadows leaned over them, reaching, whispering, chanting. The aisle ahead stretched endlessly. The midnight train roared, carrying them deeper into the dark. The car was full. Every seat occupied. Every passenger standing. Hundreds of hollow eyes fixed on the three bears. The air was heavy, humming with the sound of the train's wheels faster and faster, until it no longer felt like wheels at all but a heartbeat. Thudding, relentless, shaking the floor beneath their paws. Grizzly held his ground, though his legs trembled. "Stay behind me, guys. Whatever happens, don't let go of each other." The passengers began to move. Not walking. Not running. They slid forward, gliding across the floor, their arms outstretched. Their mouths opened in silence. Then all at once the car erupted with screams. Hundreds of voices, shrill and broken, filling the car like tearing metal. Panda fell to his knees, clutching his ears. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" Grizzly grabbed him, hauling him up. "Come on, we have to keep moving!" But Ice Bear stood frozen. His eyes locked on the window. His voice was flat. "Look." The world outside was gone. No trees, no fog, no stars. Instead, faces. Pressing against the glass from the outside. Twisting, writhing, their mouths moving in sync with the screams inside the car. The train wasn't moving through a forest anymore. It was moving through them. Through endless passengers, endless souls, all screaming, all watching. The floor shifted. The wood rippled under their paws like skin. The aisle narrowed, squeezing them toward the crowd of passengers. Panda stumbled, clutching the flickering lantern. Its flame was small now, weak, almost gone. "Grizz, it's dying. We're gonna lose the light." Grizzly pulled him close, eyes wide with panic. "No, we can't. If it goes out..." Ice Bear stepped forward, placing his paw over the lantern. His voice was calm but heavy. "Lantern not enough. Need something stronger." The passengers swarmed closer. Hands clawed. Faces stretched. The screams rose until they became words, a single chant rattling the walls. "Stay! Stay! Stay!" The bears backed into a corner, trapped. Panda sobbed, hiding his face. Grizzly bared his teeth, ready to fight. Ice Bear tightened his grip on the lantern, staring at the crowd. Then the lantern flared. Not a little flicker, not a weak glow. A blast of golden fire that erupted outward, filling the car, blinding the hollow eyes, tearing through the shadows. The passengers shrieked, their shapes twisting, unraveling, dissolving into smoke. The windows shattered outward, the faces outside wailing as light burned through them. The train itself screamed, a sound deeper than metal, older than rails. It shook violently, throwing the bears to the floor. Grizzly shouted over the roar, "What's happening? What did you do?" Ice Bear's eyes stayed locked on the blazing lantern, his voice calm. "Not me. Lantern remembers." The walls of the car began to melt. Seats sagged into the floor like wax. The aisle stretched and broke apart, shadows clawing at the air as they were pulled into the light. Panda held on to Grizzly, sobbing. "We're gonna crash. We're gonna fall. The floor vanished beneath them. The bears plunged into darkness. The train screamed one final time. And then, silence. The fall felt endless. Darkness wrapped around the bears like a blanket, heavy but strangely gentle, muffling every sound. And then, softly, the ground rose to meet them. They landed in grass. Cool, damp, real. Grizzly groaned, rubbing his head. "Ow, I think we're alive." Panda blinked, looking around. They were in a quiet meadow, the night sky above them, stars glittering clear and bright for the first time since the ride began. We're back outside. No train, no tracks. Ice Bear sat up slowly, lantern still in his paw. Its glow was faint again, soft and steady, like a firefly trapped in glass. His voice was low. "Safe. For now." The bears huddled close, their fur damp with night dew, the meadow stretching around them. For the first time in hours, there was no chanting, no footsteps, no screaming, only the whisper of crickets and the cool breeze. Grizzly sighed, shoulders heavy with relief. We made it through, somehow. Panda leaned against him, eyes fluttering. I thought we'd never get out." Ice Bear looked at the lantern. Its glow shimmered warm and golden. Light remembers. Protected us. They lay down side by side in the grass. The stars above shimmered like lanterns hung across the sky. Their breathing slowed, their hearts finally quieting after the terror of the ride. Grizzly yawned, wrapping his arms around his brothers. "Whatever that train was, it can't hurt us now. We've got each other. That's all we need." Panda murmured sleepily. "Together," Ice Bear whispered, closing his eyes. "Always?" The lantern's flame dimmed to the softest flicker. The meadow hushed, and the bears drifted into gentle, dreamless sleep. But far, far away in the distance of the night, the faint sound of wheels echoed. A whistle blew. Low, hollow, endless. The midnight train still rode on, waiting for its next passengers. The bears walked through the forest, their paws crunching in the snow, breath fogged before them, little clouds in the moonlight. Grizzly pulled his scarf tighter. "Man, it's freezing tonight, but kinda nice, right? Everything's so quiet." Panda shivered, clutching his bag. "Quiet, yeah, but also spooky. Like something's watching us." Ice Bear trudged ahead, calm as always. Ice Bear liked silence. The forest opened to a frozen lake. At the far edge, a jagged mouth of stone yawned open, glowing faintly blue inside. The entrance to the cave. Panda stopped, his paws trembling. "Do we really have to go in there?" Grizzly grinned, though his breath shook. "Come on, just think. An ice cave. It'll be cool. Maybe we'll find crystals or treasures or, I don't know, snow ghosts." Ice Bear's eyes lingered on the cave. His voice was flat. "Echoes live here." The cave's breath drifted out, cold as glass, wrapping around their fur. The walls shimmered faintly with frozen light. Step by step they entered. Their paws tapped against the icy floor, every sound stretching too far, repeating back to them. Tap, 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 ah, tap, tap, ah, tap. But the echoes didn't sound the same. Grizzly frowned and listening. Did you hear that? It's like, it's not repeating us exactly. Panda's voice quivered. It sounded slower, deeper. Ice Bear whispered. Not echo, answer. The cave glowed faintly brighter as they walked deeper. The walls bent inward, dripping with frozen spears. Their reflections rippled across the ice, distorted and shifting, like they weren't moving at the same time the bears were. Panda clung to Grizzly's arm. "I don't like this. I don't like this at all." Grizzly forced a smile. "It's just an echo, Pan, just a trick of sound. Nothing weird." But Ice Bear stopped, his paw raised. His ears twitched at the sound ahead. In the dark of the cave, something whispered back. Not an echo, not a reflection, a voice. And it said their names. The cave swallowed their breath, their words, their footsteps. Every sound bounced back, but not the same. When Grizzly whispered, "Hello?" the cave answered in a slower, heavier voice. "Hello?" When Panda whimpered, "Let's go back," the cave returned, sharper this time. "Don't go back." And when Ice Bear murmured, "Quiet," the cave laughed. Not their laugh. Something else's. The walls shimmered, rippling with faint blue light, as though the ice itself was alive. Reflections shifted in ways they shouldn't. When Panda peeked into the frozen wall, his reflection smiled back, but Panda wasn't smiling. He gasped, stumbling back. "Grizz, it's moving different, it's..." Grizzly pressed closer, staring at his own reflection. It leaned toward him, closer than the ice should allow. His ears flattened. That's not right." Ice Bear didn't look. He stared deeper into the cave, his voice a low warning. "Don't watch walls!" The echoes grew louder, not just repeating, speaking. Grizzly's voice, but twisted. "Stay inside." Panda's voice trembling. "We're already trapped." Ice Bear's voice hollow. "You never leave." The real bears froze, their hearts pounding. Panda shook his head violently. "That's not me. I didn't say that. I didn't." Grizzly growled, trying to stay brave. "It's just a trick. Just the air messing with sound, that's all." But the cave whispered back, cruel and clear. Not trick, truth. The deeper they walked, the colder it grew. Frost clung to their fur. Their paws slid on glassy ice. The lantern Panda carried flickered weakly, its light pale against the crushing blue glow of the walls. Shapes appeared in the ice. Not reflections, but figures. Tall, thin, stretched. Frozen faces with mouths open and silent screams. Dozens of them, locked in the walls, their eyes following the bears as they passed. Panda whimpered, clutching Grizzly's paw. They're people. They're trapped in there. Grizz, we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't... One face in the ice moved. Its mouth stretched wider, and it whispered his name. The echoes swelled. The cave roared with hundreds of voices now. Some theirs, some strangers, some too broken to understand. The walls shook. Snow dust rained from the ceiling. The bears stumbled back, clutching each other, surrounded by screams. Grizzly shouted, "We have to get out! Now!" But the cave laughed again, a low rumble that rattled through their bones. The tunnel ahead split in two. One glowing faint blue, one glowing faint red. Both whispered in unison, "Come closer. Choose." The bears stood frozen between them, echoes clawing at their ears, the frozen faces watching from the walls, their own reflections twitching in the glassy surface. Panda's voice cracked. We have to pick one. But which one?" Grizzly's fist clenched. "It doesn't matter. We can't stay here." Ice Bear stared into the two glowing paths, his breath misting. Both dangerous. And then from both tunnels at once, their own voices whispered back, louder than all the others. "Come home." The two tunnels yawned before them, one glowing blue, one glowing red. Both whispered in unison, "Come home." The air pressed heavy against their fur. The longer they waited, the louder the whispers grew until they weren't echoes at all, but commands. Grizzly took a deep breath, wrapping an arm around Panda. Okay, we're sticking together. No splitting up. Got it? Panda nodded furiously, his eyes wide, paws clutching the lantern. Yeah, together. Always together. Ice Bear gave one slow nod. Blue path. Safer. Without another word, they stepped into the blue tunnel. The light shimmered around them, colder, sharper. The walls bent inward like glass teeth. Their reflections followed, walking beside them, but not in sync. Sometimes faster, sometimes slower. Panda kept glancing to his right where his reflection was. He froze. Grizz. Mine isn't holding a lantern. Grizzly turned to look. His stomach dropped. The panda in the ice walked empty-pawed, smiling faintly, his eyes too wide. Grizzly growled under his breath. Don't look at it. Just keep moving. The tunnel narrowed. The whispers pressed closer. Grizzly heard his own voice from behind him. You'll never protect them. He whipped around. No one there. Just darkness. Panda flinched as a higher, broken version of his own voice hissed in his ear. You'll be the first to disappear. He clutched Grizzly's paw tighter. It's lying, it's lying, it's lying. Ice Bear walked steady, though his eyes never left the walls. His own reflection lagged behind. Then it stopped walking completely. But Ice Bear didn't stop. The tunnel opened suddenly into a cavern. The ceiling soared high above, glittering with icicles. In the center was a frozen pool, still as glass, glowing faintly blue. The whispers stopped. The silence was worse. Grizzly exhaled. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it ends. Panda crouched by the pool, peering into it. His breath caught. Grizz. Ice Bear. Come look. The pool reflected them, but not the three bears who stood above it. In the ice, they were pale. Their eyes were hollow. Their mouths hung open in silent screams. And one by one, their reflections began to move on their own. The frozen panda lifted his paw and pointed upward. The frozen grizzly grinned with broken teeth. The frozen ice bear leaned close to the surface and whispered, but the whisper came from behind them. The real bears spun. The cavern was no longer empty. Their reflections had stepped out of the ice. Three frozen doubles, silent, breathing cold, and walking toward them. The cavern's glow deepened. The air turned heavy, sharp as glass in their lungs. The three reflections stepped forward. Their paws made no sound on the ice. Their breaths came out in a mist, colder and darker than the bears. And yet they looked exactly the same fur, same scarves, same wide eyes. Except the eyes were empty. Grizzly took a step back, his voice low, steady, though his paws shook. Okay, don't panic. They're just shadows, just tricks. They can't hurt us. But as he moved back, his reflection moved forward. Every twitch, every breath, every heartbeat copied. Until it stopped copying and smiled, a smile Grizz never made. Panda whimpered, clutching his lantern. His reflection stood across the pool, paw outstretched, empty, waiting. Its mouth moved in silence, but the whisper filled Panda's ears. You don't belong here. Let me take your place. Panda stumbled back, shaking his head violently. No, you're not me. You're not. The reflection tilted its head, and its paw began to push against the surface of the frozen pool. The ice rippled like water. Ice Bear stood his ground, his eyes locked on his double. Unlike the others, his reflection didn't move at first. It just stared. Then slowly it raised one paw and pressed it flat against the cavern wall. The real Ice Bear felt it instantly, a pressure in his chest, like something was pressing back. His breath fogged. It's pushing me. The reflection's eyes glowed faint blue. The ice wall behind Ice Bear rippled, pulling at his fur. The cavern shook. The frozen faces in the walls all around them began to scream silently, mouths stretching wide. The whispers returned, layered, endless, chanting the same word over and over. Stay, 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 stay. Grizzly roared, trying to stay brave. No, we're not staying, we're leaving, you hear me? We're leaving. His reflection opened its mouth. The sound that poured out was his voice, but deeper, broken, endless. You never leave. The reflections lunged. Panda's double leapt across the pool, claws outstretched. Panda screamed, clutching his lantern. The flame flared wildly, striking the reflection with a burst of light. The icy double shrieked, its face cracking like glass, before reforming again. Grizzly shoved his own reflection back, but the moment he touched it, frost spread up his paw, burning like fire. He howled, shaking it off, his paw numb. Ice Bear ducked as his double's arm shot out of the wall, trying to drag him in. The ice itself groaned, pulling harder, the cavern echoing with snapping, cracking, like the whole cave wanted to swallow him. The lantern flickered. The cavern darkened. The reflections closed in. Grizzly pulled Panda close, shouting, "We can't fight them! Run, run!" Ice Bear tore free from the wall, his paw bleeding where the frost had bitten. "This way!" They sprinted across the cavern floor, paws sliding on the ice. Behind them, their reflections ran too, moving faster. Shadows stretching long, footsteps silent. The pool glowed brighter, the faces screamed louder, and the whispers chased them down the tunnel. But as they ran, Panda's lantern guttered. Its flame shrank, sputtering in the freezing air. "No, no, no, please, not now. Don't go out, please." The lantern dimmed to a faint spark. The tunnel ahead split again, two twisting paths into darkness. From one, they heard their own voices shouting, desperate, begging. From the other, they heard silence. Both pulled at them. Grizzly skidded to a stop, panting. "Which way?" Panda's voice cracked. "I don't know, I don't know." Ice Bear's eyes narrowed, the spark of the lantern glinting in them. Both traps. Behind them, the reflections were almost at their heels. The bears had seconds to choose. The tunnel forked. One path alive with their own voices, calling, pleading. The other path, silent as a grave. The reflections were closing in, claws scraping the ice, faces stretching in silent screams. Grizzly grabbed his brothers. "Voices or silence? We don't have time. Pick one." Panda sobbed, clutching his lantern. "Voices sound like us. Maybe it's the way out." Ice Bear cut him off, his tone sharp. "Not us. Traps." The reflections screamed, the sound rattling the cavern. Grizzly clenched his teeth, choosing. "Then we take silence." And together they plunged into the dark. The silence was suffocating. Their footsteps didn't echo. Their breathing didn't echo. Even the soft flicker of Panda's lantern made no sound. It was as if the cave had swallowed noise itself. Panda whispered nervously, but the sound died on his lips before it reached his brother's ears. His voice went nowhere. He grabbed Grizzly's paw desperately. "Grizz, say something, say anything." But Grizzly's mouth moved and nothing came out. The tunnel pulsed. The walls of ice quivered, bending inward, narrowing. Their reflections slid across the glassy walls, not walking, but crawling. Too many arms, too many eyes. They reached out from the frozen surface, mouths opening wide. Panda clutched the lantern tighter, shaking. The silence made his own heartbeat deafening in his ears. He looked at the flame. It flickered weakly, as if it too was being swallowed. And then the tunnel opened. A vast chamber of ice. The roof soared high, jagged and cruel. The walls shimmered with hundreds, thousands of faces frozen inside, their mouths wide in eternal screams. The silence shattered. All at once the voices returned. A roar of endless echoes, layered upon one another, shrieking their names, their fears, their secrets. Grizzly will fail them. Panda will vanish first. Ice Bear already belongs here. The bears clutched each other, ears ringing, paws trembling. In the center of the cavern stood something enormous. A pillar of ice, black at its core, pulsing faintly with light. And within it, 3 shadows struggled, familiar shapes, familiar faces. They were the bears. 3 more of them, trapped, pounding against the glassy surface, screaming silently. Panda's voice cracked. That's us. Grizzly shook his head violently. No, it's not. It can't be. Ice Bear's eyes narrowed, his voice flat. It is. The pillar pulsed brighter, and the trapped shadows inside began to move differently. Not struggling, not begging, but waving. Inviting? The cavern voices screamed louder. The faces in the ice walls opened their mouths wider, and behind them, the reflections stepped out of the tunnel, their smiles sharp, their eyes empty. The bears were surrounded. The pillar hummed. The voices screamed. The reflections raised their claws. And then, all at once, every voice in the cavern, including their own, spoke together. Trade places. The pillar of black ice pulsed brighter, sharper. The frozen doubles inside pounded once more against the surface, their hollow eyes fixed on the 3 bears. And the cavern roared with 1,000 voices, shrieking, pleading, commanding. Trade places! Stay here. Become us. Grizzly stood in front of his brother, his paw trembling. We're not giving in. Do you hear me? We don't belong to you. The reflections hissed, their mouths splitting too wide. Panda clutched the lantern close, its flame the only warm light in the endless ice. His voice quivered. It's the lantern. That's all we have left. Maybe it's enough. Ice Bear stepped forward, calm but fierce. Light stronger than echo. The reflections lunged. The pillar cracked. The voices screamed. Panda raised the lantern high, whispering a desperate prayer. Please don't let it go out. And the flame flared. A burst of golden fire spilled across the cavern, blinding and pure. The faces in the walls shrieked. The frozen doubles shattered, their hollow eyes crumbling into frost. The pillar split down the middle, glowing blue light spilling into darkness. The echoes wailed one last time, and then silence fell. The cavern dimmed. The pillar stood empty. The voices were gone. The bears collapsed into the snow, panting, shaking, holding one another close. Grizzly pulled his brothers tight. We did it. I think we did it. Panda sniffled, his voice tiny. I thought we were going to be trapped forever. Ice Bear closed his eyes, resting against them. Together, we survived. The lantern flickered gently in Panda's paws, its flame steady now, and now, soft as a lullaby. The bears made their way back through the cave. The walls were quiet. The faces frozen still once more. The whispers had faded to nothing. At last, they stepped out into the snow. The night air hit their fur, sharp and real. The stars glittered above, and for the first time in hours, the world felt safe again. They huddled in the snow, leaning against each other, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Grizzly yawned. We'll never go back in there again. Panda murmured sleepily. Never again. Ice Bear whispered. "Sleep now." And one by one, they drifted off, safe under the watchful stars. But deep inside the cave, far beneath the ice, something stirred. The broken pillar pulsed once, and faintly, the echoes returned. Not gone. Waiting. The cave full of echoes never let go.